welcome to this week's rant. It is Sunday, so we're managing to do it on the right day. Hopefully the audio is working because I've been recording other videos. So let's go for it. But before we do, parish notices. If you haven't subscribed, hit the subscribe button. If you want to be notified about when stuff happens on the channel, that's the bell icon you need to hit. Consider supporting the channel. Go over to patreon.com, www.patreon.com/themusictechguy. Small donation goes a long way. The address is down here, as is my Instagram address and my Facebook feed, where the daily shenanigans that don't make it onto YouTube get recorded. But now back to the video. So it's Sunday. Let's just move that out of the way a bit. That's better. And you can see it's very bright out there. It's actually quite muggy. Managed to do this on the right day this week, and hopefully the sound seems to be recording, so we might actually have sound on the video as well, which is even better. Anyway, I always say this. I don't think this is going to be very long this week and still manage to waffle on for 10 to 15 minutes. But I don't think this is going to be very long this week. But we shall see. First things first, I've had a number of queries that have come in over the last 2 weeks. I don't know what it is. There must be something to do with the Roland A80. But there's been a number of queries, or people have DM'd me directly saying, would I be prepared to sell my Roland A80? And the short answer is no. I'm being upfront about it. I don't want to sell it. I use it. And I don't like the Roland A88. And I don't really like. There's possibly another keyboard that I may use in its place if I could get a hold of one, and that's the MRKX88, I think it is. I keep saying that. I know what it is. I can see it in my head, but I just can't think what the terminology. But it's effectively the Yamaha equivalent of the Roland A80, but it's not as functional. But it has a nice keyboard. Unfortunately, it's not for sale. And the second reason why it's not for sale is because, number one, I've done a lot of work on it, and number two, I still need to replace the screen on it, and number three, I got it for such a good price that I'm not willing to part with it. So that's 3 reasons. But for those of you who are looking for a Roland A80, if you are looking for a Roland A80 and you weren't just DMing me for the sheer what's it of it, there is one on eBay at the moment. It's up for £345. So if you want to go and bid on that, I will put the link to the eBay listing below this video. So happy bidding. The second thing I've seen a lot of in the last week, and I think it's wrong, is to do with battery holders and battery replacement. Now, if you've been watching the series I recently did on the SY85 restoration, you will know that I fitted a new battery into that synthesizer, taking out the old Yamaha solder tag battery and replacing the battery with a battery holder that looks like this, and a standard CR2450 battery. Okay, so that's what I did on that keyboard. Now, what I've seen, and I don't know who it is, but there is somebody going around selling, and it's going to appear up here, battery holders that look like this. Okay, you cannot put these in keyboards. I don't care what he says, you can't do it. And the reason why you can't do it is very simple. If you look at this, and it's not going to come out very well, there you go, you can see it now. Can you see that there are 2 pins on the base of that battery holder? And they are a set width apart, okay? In the case of many of the Yamaha style keyboards, that space between there and there is 20 millimeters, okay? One of those is the negative, one of those is the positive, and I can't remember which way around it is at the moment. I think the one in the middle is the positive. No, the one in the middle is the negative. Sorry. But that is the style, and the reason why you have to use that style of battery holder is because it sits flush to the circuit board, like so, and then the battery slides in. So the profile of the battery and the battery holder is about, I don't know, what's that, it's less than 10 mil, isn't it? Less than 10 mil. Okay, so and when you put the cover on, everything seats nicely. Now, the other style of battery holder, one is now up here. If you look at that, that sits that way up, and the battery and the connection lugs are down here, which means that that has a relief profile of what, I don't know, 40 plus. Yeah, it's got to be 40. Yeah, nearly 40 mil. Okay, that will protrude above the keyboard or into another space. It doesn't sit as flush as that does, and you can't use those. So don't bother going and buying them because you can't use them. I will put links to the 2450 caddies and the CR2032 caddies below this video. If you want to buy them, they're the ones to buy, not the ones that are being advertised quite heavily at the moment in lots of places. So somebody's obviously got a job lot of them is trying to shift them on, but you can't use them in the keyboards, so don't bother. Okay, so that's two public service notices out of the way, shall we say. Now we get on to the more interesting stuff. This arrived this week, okay. And it's not, as it at first seems, it's not for the M1, because when you read that you think, it's the M1. It's not actually, because if I then hold it a bit closer to the camera, can you see it says for the JV80, D70, VM30, U220. Okay, all right. Which keyboard? Which manufacturer? Yes, it's Roland. So this arrived this week, part of sort of my information on various things legacy. And the thing is, if you don't grab hold of this information while it's available, it gets squirreled away into somebody's collection, or somebody does something with it, or it just gets destroyed, and the information is lost. Now, the reason why I bought this was pretty much for this kind of table at the back here, which tells me all the various cards that were issued by Roland at this point in time, and this point in time was October 92. Yeah, October 92. So October 92, unfortunately the lighting is just reflecting off that, but October 92, and I'll put a big version of that up there so you can just have a look at it. And it sort of tells you about all the SN cards for the U110, which I pretty much have got, all the SLD70 cards for the D70, funny enough, which I have also got, the PN cards for the D70, which I think I have, and I don't have, and then all the PN for the JV80, again, I think I have all those as well now. Yeah. So, and then inside this, the reason why it's interesting is inside it actually gives you a list. And again, I'll put a sample of this up so you can see it up there in a sec. It gives you a sample, all the actual sound names that were on these library cards, which is rather good because quite often you buy these library cards and you buy them and they've lost their boxes and they've lost this and they've lost that, and effectively the way you understand what sounds are on there is by actually going through and cataloguing. So it was just sort of some sort of quick reference, which I will scan, and once it's scanned, this can then go away for preservation, and I've got all the information in the scan. But that was the M1, and I say it looks like M1, but it's nothing to do with Korg. It's actually a Roland document. So that arrived. I was quite rapt by that. Somebody sent that to me, and then somebody also sent to me. I was having a chat with somebody about the S6000 sampler that I own. So I, as you probably well know, I own an S6000 sampler. I have to be brutally honest and say I haven't really been doing much with the S6000 sampler. But I have it. It's fully loaded with a Jazz drive and SCSI drives and the USB card and all the other stuff that goes with it. So it's actually sitting there ready to rock and roll. One of the biggest problems I had in the old studio was actually lack of TV space, which sounds a bit daft, but when you're using a sampler, you kind of need a lot of visual about what that sampler is doing. Now, the S50, in fact, all of the Roland samplers, to be honest, in fact, I'm not sure about the S10. I think it does. All the Roland samplers have a CRT output, and the higher end samplers ended up with a standard RGB output, but all of them had a composite output, which allowed you to plug it into a TV screen, or a cathode ray monitor was what they sold at the time. You could actually buy a Roland cathode ray monitor that would actually service the samplers, and you could also buy other bits and bobs that would service the samplers as well, like the RC100, which was the sort of the external tablet module. And you really needed those, I have to be honest, to be able to use those samplers. Now, when they went to the W30, the W30 actually had a fairly decent sized screen, and while you still really needed the CRT for the W30, you can actually do quite a lot on the W30 because you can actually read it off the LCD screen, because by that point in time they had improved the LCD screen that they were shipping with the keyboard. So you were able to see that, which was all well and good. So anyway, having this conversation over Messenger, and the guy said, "Well, I've got these brochures for AKAI samplers. Would you like them?" And I said, "Well, yeah, why not?" So I gave him the drop address, and he sent them to me. What he didn't mention to me was they're all in French. Now, I can tell you now, when I was at school, I learnt to speak French and I learnt to speak German. And in my professional career, I've worked in Germany. So my German is not bad. It's not good, but it's not bad. But I can get by. I can actually hold business meetings in German if I had to. But I prefer not to. I dare say if I had to go and live and work there, my German would pick itself up quite quickly. I found that when I was in Switzerland a few years back, I was able to, well, funny enough, I was probably able to speak French and German to a degree, which quite surprised me, I have to be honest. Anyway, I sort of got these out, and I sort of thought, oh great, I could be able to understand what's the S6000 is all about. And then I realised that my French is my speaking French might be not bad, but my reading French is poor. So I'm not quite sure what I'm going to do with these, but they're nice brochures about the S6000. And one of the things I like about the S6000 is I like this feature here, which is this bit here, which is the reason why I bought the S6000 actually, to be honest, was the fact that you can take the control tablet and you can actually move the control tablet quite a way away from the S6000. Now, in the last studio setup, as I said, I had problems with screened real estate, and I tried to address that in several different ways. I did look at getting a monitor that would go in one of the 19-inch racks, and I could have the S6000 with the monitor above it. And I did seriously look at that, and I came up with several different sort of ideas about how to do that, being from a standard sort of computer 19-inch rack mount computer display that I could put in there. That was one option. I did sort of see if I could salvage. I knew somebody who was decommissioning some data rooms, and they had some of those push-in monitors that comes up with the screen. I did look at see if I could acquire those, but they wanted to sell the whole lot to one person as a job lot, and they didn't want to sell individual items, which was a bit of a shame, because that would have probably been absolutely ideal. But the reality is, the reason why I like the S6000 is because the display on the S6000, which is this top one here, is big enough to actually be usable. And what I mean by usable is it actually is, I think it's, let's have a look, what does it say? Retro. So it's 320 by 240 pixels across. How big is it? It doesn't tell me actually how big it is. It tells me how many pixels it is. It doesn't actually tell me the dimensions across it. Oh well, c'est la vie. Let's have a quick scan. Does it tell me in here? Did away to MIDI. No, that doesn't tell me how big it is either. I think it's about 4 inches, if I remember correctly. But it is usable. That was the reason why it is so. And you can detach it from the unit. So what was great was I could detach it from the unit, and I can actually have the cable going from the unit and have it patched into the unit. So I could patch whatever I was trying to sample into the unit, and then move over to what I was actually using to trigger the patch or trigger the sample. And then I could do everything from there rather than having to actually be on top of the sampler. That's kind of why I liked it. But I have to be honest and say I've upgraded it. I've switched it all on, probably, but I haven't used it for about 6 to 9 months. And given the fact that I moved here 3 months ago, so that was about 6 months before I moved, was the last time I think I switched it on and used it in anger. But anyway, that came through. That was the S6000 and S5000, and effectively they were the same machine. 6000 slightly more powerful and had the removable screen. And then he sent me through some stuff on the S2000, S3000, and S3000 XL. That's the only bit that's in English. There was some more stuff on the XCD 3000 XL, which is also in English. There were the 2 bits that were in English. And then we got this thing on AKAI Professional Samplers, which is more or less all about the S1000, which is, there you go, there's the S1000. And I always wanted an S1000. I have to be brutally honest and say, I always wanted an S1000. And I've never ever got round to buying one, and will I ever get round to buying one? I really don't know. Maybe just if one turned up on the market one day at a reasonable, or probably knocked down price, then I might be really interested. One of the great things about the S1000 was it actually set the bar because it moved sampling up to 44.1 kilohertz. You couldn't do an awful lot at 41.4 kilohertz, but it actually moved the bar up, and that's why it became such a popular machine. And Roland and other manufacturers were in the sample game at that point in time. Really had to up their game because the S1000 really stole the market from them, and it was every hip hop, house, dance DJ had one of these things. I never did, but I had one of these things. You know, that's what they were kind of all using at the time. Now, what's really interesting about that is it then goes on to the other bits of the S1000. Now, this was something I kind of knew about this, but I forgot about this, which was the S1000 keyboard. Yes, there was a keyboard for it. You could sample. Now, I've completely forgotten about that. I remember the rack mount unit because everybody I knew who had an S1000, they had a rack mount unit, and I knew there was a keyboard for it, but I can never remember ever seeing anyone use it. Then we have all the options, and bear with me because this is all in French. You had the 2 megabyte expansion card. Then you had the 8 megabyte expansion card. Then we had the dedicated Atari interface. If I'm reading this right, then we had the dedicated SCSI interface. Then we had the DAT interface. And we also had the 80, and I re-emphasize this, 80 megabyte hard drive. Yeah. So now we talk quite merrily. I think my storage solution, where I store all the videos on this thing here, is something like 25 terabytes, and here we're talking about 85 megabytes. You know, it's 2 factors below where I am on the storage. I mean, one of these videos, I'm not being funny, but one of these sort of SMR videos is, by the time it's all edited and composed and flashed down, is a little under a gigabyte in size. So I wouldn't even get the rant video onto one of these things, and yet these were cutting edge at the time. Then we had the DAT interface. Then we had the 2 megabyte expansion card. Then we had the 8 megabyte hard drive. You know, so now we talk quite merrily. I think my storage solution, where I store all the videos on this thing here, is something like 25 terabytes, and here we're talking about 85 megabytes. You know, it's 2 factors below where I am on the storage. I mean, one of these videos, I'm not being funny, but one of these sort of SMR videos is, by the time it's all edited and composed and flashed down, is a little under a gigabyte in size. So I wouldn't even get the rant video onto one of these things, and yet these were cutting edge at the time. It is. I mean, again, I'm sort of whizzing through this, scanning this with my bestest French on, um, looking at this. But the other one, well, that was around quite heavily at the time, was the one that was just below the S1000, which is that one there, which is the S950. And basically, if you didn't have an S1000, you had an S950. That was kind of how it worked. It wasn't as functional as the S1000, being the S1000 came out just after it. If I'm reading this correctly, this was 1986, the S950, and this one came out in September 98, so there was about 2 years between the two machines. And then what's really interesting about this is you then sort of start to go into the other stuff that AKAI was pushing out at the time. So again, what I'll do is I'll put this up here so you can see it. But looking at this, there was a stereo MIDI reverb unit. There was the AKAI cassette player. They made the lot. They made the whole lot here. I mean, it was. There was the AKAI. Magnetophone so magnetophone tape deck, multi-track tape deck. I told you, it's a long time since I had to read this stuff. Which was rack mount, and actually I can remember seeing one of those, and I'm trying to think where I can remember seeing that. Then there was the Beats, the 16-bit PCM drum machine, which was that. Then they had this. Now I remember seeing one of these. I do remember seeing one of those, which is the MX76 Clavier MIDI controller. That was actually a very nice keyboard at the time. I can remember going somewhere where that was and trying that out. And that, I'm pretty sure that was a Project Music. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was in Project Music. In fact, actually, most of this AKAI stuff would have been in Project Music because it was the sort of stuff that Project Music carried. You've heard me talk about Project Music in the past. Project Music was a musician's music shop based in West London at the time. It doesn't exist anymore. It's long since disappeared. But it was there for musicians. That's kind of how I think an electronic music shop should be. It should have all the gear there, and you can just go in and play, and eventually get the credit card out. That's how it should be. I think we kind of lost it, and unfortunately, like the online sales and the online sales portal have lost it for us. But really, you need to go and play with this stuff. I use, as you well know, I tend to use a place in Guildford a lot for going and doing that. And the reason why quite often you'll see links below that are actually to Thorman, not Anderton's, is quite simple. That I've gone for putting links to a company that will ship European wide, and they will actually also ship wider than Europe. But you'll pay shipping, but typically they will ship European wide for no additional cost. That's the reason why you see links below videos to stuff or new equipment will be to Thorman, not to Anderton's, because Anderton's is a UK entity. And as much as I like to support Anderton's, they won't ship to Europe, whereas Thorman ship European wide. Okay, that's simple logic behind that. And then they have the Studio Trackman. Oh, so the Studio Trackman was a four-track tape machine. So that was like a Tascam 4-track. Oh, didn't know that. Anyway, there you go. So some things have arrived. I learned something new. My French may improve. I somehow doubt it though. And that is the rant for this week. Now, after this, I'm going to do a series of mailbags. I have been writing the mailbags this morning. and responding to a lot of people. You guys are really putting lots of really good questions and comments on the channel. Please don't stop. It's what this channel is all about. It's all about sharing the knowledge and having or instigated discussion about the technology behind the music we produce. So please don't stop. If you want me to cover something in a video, drop a comment or DM me personally. I don't have a problem with that. A number of you have DM'd me personally. Go to my Instagram feed, drop me a question over there, drop me a comment. But you know, if you got ideas of things that you think might be worthwhile, and I've got the equipment or I've got the knowledge to do it, why not? Why not? I'll try and make the video for you. But that I have waffled on for far too long. Again, it's time to say live long and prosper. Actually, it really is that one, isn't it? Live long and prosper. No, it's that one. Live long and prosper. I'll get it right in a minute. And carry on watching the channel. Honestly, the support you guys give me is phenomenal. A little bit more on Patreon wouldn't go amiss, but really, guys, the support you shelve on the channel is phenomenal. The channel is growing. It is doing exactly what I intended it to do, which is this community type thing. So well done. I applaud you guys for leaving good comments and constructive comments on the channel that we can then discuss and share. But until then, bye-bye.